You're listening to the Hockey 411 with your host, Brian Anderson. Welcome to the Hockey 411, where it's been a while, but we're back for this week's episode. I apologize for my stuffy nose. A little crazy here on campus, but I'm your host once again, Brian Anderson, and today Brandon from Knuckle Up Hockey is joining us, who's been on the show multiple times before as we break down this trade deadline. Brandon, how are you?
Brian, I'm great. It's really great to be back here. Haven't talked to you in a while. I've always wanted to get back on. I see you're doing pretty well for yourself, getting some big names. So pretty honored, I guess you could say, to be able to come on here and have you trust me enough to do the trade deadline talk.
Yeah, I mean, this show last year was a really big hit. I mean, it was one of our most viewed episodes or listened to. So I figured, might as well go back to the source. So we're back at it again. We're going to go through same format. I don't know if you listened to last year, but we'll break it down for you again. We're going to do some honorable mentions, and we're going to get right into our top 10 for guys that, we think that are going to get moved. But I first want to start off with probably some interesting news coming out of Ottawa and Los Angeles, where Dion Phaneuf was traded for, it was him and Nate Thompson going to LA in return for Marian Gaborik and Nick Shore going to Ottawa. Now, my initial reaction was that, wow, Dion Phaneuf, big contract, he's getting moved again. And when you look at everything, it's not like the contract now has been traded twice, so I guess it is pretty movable. I mean, I don't really know at this point. For all I know, he could be traded in the next year or two. But from right now, I think LA did a decent job. I know Dion is bad contract and everything, like I said, but when you look at everything here, he's a good 3-4 shutdown defenseman. He's physical. There was a little bit more of a ceiling for him when he was drafted, but it's at this point in his career, I think he's a solid move by LA, shoring up that defense core, especially in a Western Conference where he can get big boys and very physical. Dion will do very well there. Nate Thompson also coming in, who's very good in the dot and very good as your third, fourth liner there, so it shores up that backbone. Now, you had to give up a contract to get a contract, I guess, and Ottawa gets Marian Gaborik for, I believe, I think it's a 3-year deal left on it. I know it's a 4.8 sitting at this year, but from what it looks like, he's going to be playing on their top line along with Duchesne and Hoffman, and that, for the time being, can be, if Gaborik can kind of relive his speed, that's a very fast, very deadly top line there. And then Nick Shore, who's got a lot more upside than, a younger upside than Nate Thompson. So I think both teams fare out pretty good here. I mean, Ottawa gains a lot of cap room. They've got big expenses paid. But LA also benefits from some veteran leadership and some veteran toughness in the dot and on the blue line there. So it'll be interesting to see coming down the road. But I think for this year, not a bad move by either team.
I'm not really shocked that Dion went to LA. I feel like Dion's been linked to LA for the last 2 or 3 years now, so it's about time they got that move done. I mean, the West is such a absolute crapshoot right now with how tight some of those playoff races are. So I think, bringing that guy there, a guy like Dion on the back end helps, but I mean, he's not the player he was before. He's not the player he was in Calgary. I mean, he's not even the player he was when he started off in Toronto his first year there. I think he has been one of the defensemen in the NHL that has regressed the most year in and year out. Maybe a fresh start in LA will really get him up a level again. But to me, he's no longer a 1-2 guy. He's a lower 4, maybe 5 guy. But, defensive depth in the playoffs helps teams out a lot, and that's really what LA's looking for there. I don't know if they're going to go after scoring as well or what they're going to do moving forward, but if that's the only thing they do before the deadline, does that really get them into the playoffs? I don't know, okay? But, I mean, if that's a move you're looking to make, that's the good way to do it. That solidifies your D. It's just, I don't think it puts LA over the hump in the West.
No, I kind of agree with you there. I think it definitely shores it up. They probably need to make another move if they want to be a real team, like a real deadly team in this playoffs. But you bring up a really good point about Phaneuf, where he's had regression and, he's got a bigger contract and stuff like that. But, even for LA, I think it brings back an older guy, a little bit more veteran experience as well. Someone who has had, a deep playoff run. Plus, like I said, with Ottawa, they get a lot. They get 1.1 more in cap room, which is huge, and Gabrick's money or payments on for the club have gone down as well. So that's another thing, so that they can afford. I don't know if you have any comments about Ottawa, but I'm ready to move on to honorable mentions right now.
I mean, we got plenty to talk about with Ottawa with the honorable mention list and the actual trade list, so we can wait till we get there.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. I'm going to kick it off here with honorable mentions. I'm going to start off with Ryan McDonough and Matt Zuccarello. Okay, yes, these guys probably should be in my top 10, but I'm not convinced that they're going to be moved yet. They both have one more year left on their deal, and I don't know if the Rangers are ready to move on from these guys. These guys are corner pieces for this Ranger team. And I know they're trying to tank and they're blowing it up, I guess, but these are bigger guys for this club. It's just the way it is. I'm going to keep moving on here. Josh Levo, excuse me, and Nikita Soshnikov, both younger guys. Levo wants out of Toronto. Soshnikov doesn't really look like he fits in there right now. Both younger guys that teams can step up and take. That's just the way it's going to be. Eric Gudbranson, hard-nosed physical defenseman. He's had a tough time staying in the lineup for Vancouver, even though they have been talking about him getting an extension. I don't really know what the deal is there, but if someone's going to get moved, I think teams would be very interested in him. And lastly, I have Galchenyuk, where I know we've talked about him on this show, and he doesn't go harder than that. And there's so many, we can point out all his flaws, but I truly think it's going to be a fresh start that saves this kid's career. It's just not working out in Montreal. I don't know if they should sell him now or they should sell him back in the offseason, but I think it's time to move on from him. It's just not working out. Places that Galchenyuk could probably end up going: New Jersey, Pittsburgh, New York, possibly for a second or third. Branson, you'll go for possibly a second or third, more of a third there. New York, the Islanders, the Toronto Maple Leafs, and the Tampa Bay Lightning, all looking for defensemen. Josh Levo and Nikita Soshnikov, they probably could be packaged. I can't really see him, the Leafs, if anything, they have that 50 contract thing, so they're going to take picks, maybe lower ends. Maybe a Pittsburgh, Calgary, or an Anaheim could work it out there. Ryan McDonough and Matt Zuccarello, I don't really have anything because I'm not convinced they're going to be traded.
I mean, I've got Zuccarello and McDonough pretty high on my actual list, and I'll get into that when we get there. But my honorable mentions are Zach Smith. I think he's a good player. I think he can really help a team like Pittsburgh. But there's someone on my list who I think is a much more attractive option that brings a little bit more offense. Thomas Vanek, he's having a good season. He still has that, clutch feel, that big name. But if he gets moved, I don't know. It's tough to tell. Max Pacioretty on my worth mentioning list. I think Montreal is a lot safer trading him in the offseason. I think you're not going to find a team desperate enough to sell at what Montreal needs to acquire their captain at the deadline. But if it somehow does happen, I would really look at the St. Louis Blues to take a run at Pacioretty. Matt Martin, another name on my list. He's been on the outs in Toronto, which drives me crazy because you've been seeing what that team has been going through right now without having Martin in the lineup. They're getting physically beat up a little bit more, but they're still playing well. And I think Martin would help them a lot in the playoffs. So if that's needed, he should stay in that organization. But I could also see the Islanders taking a run to bring him back home. And then the last name on my worth mentioning list is James Neal. Someone on Twitter, forget who, but a pretty big name, dropped that Las Vegas could potentially be taking calls on Neal. And that doesn't surprise me. From the beginning, Las Vegas has been saying it's not about winning this year. Okay, this year is a nice story. What we're doing here is awesome, but we want the long approach. Neal is a UFA, I believe, and he's having a stellar season. Some team, a la the Boston Bruins or the Pittsburgh Penguins, that need a little extra scoring oomph, if they sell high enough, what makes you think Vegas wouldn't say, we're not going to win the Cup this year anyways? Who knows if he's going to re-sign? Who knows if we can afford him? Let's get something big for him and move on.
Yeah, no, those are all really big players and big points. I think with the Neal deal, it's going to be interesting because they are riding pretty high now. Vegas has come out and they've really showing everyone like, hey, this is what we're all about now. And, last week we had on Ken from Sinbin Vegas, and from what it sounded like with him was that they were really not going to move Neil. So we have some conflicting reports here, but, we'll see. The big name that stuck out of that list, I'm not going to go with Patrick, I'm going to go with Vanek, because he can be moved, and he still has that scoring touch. So we're going to keep moving on here. I'm going to go into my number 10. Mr. Matt Cullen, veteran center. It seems like he's on the block. There's a lot of rumors about him, but when you look at him, he's very solid in the circle. He's a good 3-4 there, and he provides veteran leadership and depth. I mean, the guy's got 2 rings now, or 2 pass rings in 2 seasons. I believe he has 3 in total, and he's really good in the defensive zone too. He's a really solid player. I don't know if Minnesota's willing to move on from him, but I keep hearing rumors, because if they do, they leave a hole in that 3-4 spot there for them. Places I could see him going, excuse me, Pittsburgh, Columbus, and Anaheim. And I do apologize for my nose and my throat. It's been a tough week here.
For me, number 10 is Thomas Plekanec, Montreal. He's been one of their big guys, or long stay guys, for a long time. And I think that he's gonna want a little bit of money on his final contract, and Montreal isn't in a position to pay older guys that have been around for a long time that have done nothing recently. Plekanec's goal-scoring touch has pretty much disappeared in Montreal over the last couple seasons. He's still very, very good defensively, and if you look at the team that I believe most interested in Plekanec is Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh has won back-to-back Stanley Cups with center depth, okay? Malkin, Crosby, Cullen. Now, that third-line center position, that fourth-line center position, not as prevalent this year. If they can say, hey, Montreal, we'll give you a second. Hey, Montreal, we'll give you a first. Or maybe dangle a prospect that's not at the top of their list, but good enough where Montreal's like, hey, we need to get younger, we need to get more scoring. We'll give you Plekanec and move forward. That makes Pittsburgh a legitimate threat to go 3 for 3. But they need to get one more scoring touch, and we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I have Plekanec a little bit higher, but definitely Pittsburgh is interested for that 3-4 spot. And then when you look at last year, you didn't mention Bonino too. Like, he's been a major factor as that 3-4 there as well. We're gonna move on to number 9 there. I have Mike Hoffman as a number 9 now. If you're listening to this, you're probably going to be sitting there like, wait, why is he your number 9? Like, this kid he can score, he can do everything, basically. He's great in the shootout, really offensively gifted. I don't think they're going to move him, really. I know there's a big upside, and I know there's a market for him, but the chemistry he's discovered with Matt Duchene has looked really good. It's just that maybe they get a better return. That's why he's a little bit lower, because that Duchene chemistry. If Duchene is going to be there long term, you need a guy to develop some chemistry with him, and that's Mike Hoffman. If he does go, it's going to be a prospect, a first, and some kind of other asset, either a second rounder, another pick, or some kind of another prospect. Places I can definitely see him going: Carolina. I think Calgary is definitely interested in some scoring, and San Jose.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm throwing a curveball here, so.
Well, the next name on my list is kind of a curveball, and I don't think it's something you would expect to see at number 9, but Max Domi. Domi is a player that seems to be in need of a fresh start. He's got 20 assists this year, but Zach Ronaldo has more goals than him. All right, Ronaldo's got 4. Domi's only potted in 3 this year. Domi is a player that's willing to play physical. He's willing to play skilled. He's definitely a type of player that can come in to an organization making a playoff run and really bolster their top 6 if you play him with the right center. Teams I think could be interested, Colorado, but who knows if they really want to give up extra assets to bring him in. New Jersey Devils are right in that hunt. He could probably help out their top 6, play him with Taylor Hall. You might lose a little of the chemistry that they have going there, but that could work as well. I think the main thing with Domi is you're not really trading for what he's done this season. You're trading for upside. And a team outside of the playoffs that I've heard is willing to bring in Domi is Montreal. Montreal could be very active at the deadline to acquire future pieces because this season isn't going anywhere. But if they have a chance to bring in young guys and not give up a lot, but just enough, I could see Montreal making a play at Domi if Arizona really wants to move him. I think this is a year where you could look at teams outside the playoffs bringing in pieces for the future more than ever before.
Yeah, I mean, I think having Max Domi there, considering where Arizona's sitting right now, is not a bad pick. I know it's a little off the board, but in my opinion, that's really not a bad thing considering Arizona's been shopping, I guess, people. Domi seems like he could use a fresh start considering it was always an interesting situation in Arizona for him, the way they handled his growth, I guess, and then now look where he's at and he's kind of plateaued there. Yeah, I think Montreal could definitely use some youth. New Jersey would definitely like to reassure their top six, and he's young enough to where you're going to get a future with him. His upside is definitely there. He's young enough. He's definitely physical enough, and he can do it all, I think. It's not a bad number 9 there. And we're going to keep moving on here to number 8, and I have, probably going off the board again here, Mr. Ian Cole, who has seemed to fallen out of favor with Mike Sullivan in Pittsburgh. Very capable defenseman. Recently signed that extension, I believe it was last year or the year before. I don't know. It seems like when he's not in the lineup, they've been doing decent enough to where they could probably move him. And if you're Pittsburgh, you need a center, and you need to probably start replenishing some assets so that the drop-off doesn't come down along the road. Possible return, second, maybe in a player. I think defensemen are very valuable in this draft. Places, I know Tampa's looking for a defenseman. Toronto's always looking for a defenseman, and I'm throwing Dallas in there. They could definitely reassure that bottom role that they have there. I know they've got a Klingberg, and I know Mathot really hasn't played this year, but they could definitely use some depth there, and I think Ian Cole would be a good fit in Dallas.
All right. My spot here, I have a defenseman, but I don't have Ian Cole. I know we discussed our list before we talked, and you have this player a lot higher than I do. But at 8, I have Mike Green. I think Green's a good player. I just think there's better forward options as well as defensive options available over Mike Green. But if you're looking for a guy to bolster your power play that can really, help you out as a veteran right-shooting defenseman, Mike Green's your guy. And I think there's a good handful of teams that could really use that. Tampa Bay, for example, could really have someone come in, really work that power play, maybe work a little bit more with, oh man, why am I blanking on the name? They just traded for him from Montreal.
Sergachev?
Sergachev, thank you. He could come in, really work up top with Sergachev, and then, have that passing ability, that shooting ability with Stamkos out there. Toronto definitely needs a defenseman if they're going to make a playoff push. Dallas needs one. I think Winnipeg's bottom defensive pairing with Kulikov and Sherrod, or however you say his last name. I always butcher last names. I might as well be Don Cherry from America. But, I think those are real legitimate options. The only thing is, he is going to cost a lot. He's probably the top rental defenseman and maybe one of the top defensemen available long-term, if you're including long-term players like Ryan McDonough, who I have higher on the list.
Yeah, I have Mike Green a lot higher, so I'll get into my point of view, but I think you definitely bring up some interesting points there on him. He's definitely worth mentioning in this top 10 list. I'm going to move on to number 7 here. This is where I have Thomas Plekanec, just because, yes, I know his scoring touch is gone, but I think he's still very well in the dot, and he's very well defensively. Montreal needs to move this guy, I think. I know he's sitting at the rest of the year at $6 million. They're going to have to eat some cap, but Montreal needs to start getting some assets in return and then maybe parlaying into something else. I don't really know where they're going. He's a UFA. You got to get something for him. That's why he's a little higher. Originally had LA on my list here for places to go, but it doesn't look like it anymore after they got Nate Thompson yesterday. So I only have Pittsburgh and Nashville here. I can only see him going for like a third or fourth because that scoring touch and that cap hit there. But I think he's definitely worth the rental. I think if you can get him at a decent price, yeah, it's a good deal. He's definitely would give some good depth for some of these teams.
Okay. Sorry about that.
No, you're all good.
It's funny. I'm looking over my list here, and I don't have Nashville making a move. At every team that I'm looking at right now, that of players that I have, I don't see Nashville trying to acquire anyone. I think Nashville is going to be pretty happy with who they have. I know they're linked to Rick Nash, but I think they're happy with who they have, and they have Fisher coming in. But it's just funny that you say Nashville, and I decided to look, and I don't have on my top 10 of them making a move. Anyways, it's 7 on my list. I've got Mike Hoffman. Ottawa's in sell mode. See you later, everybody, okay? They brought in Matt Duchene to try and fix something, to try and make something better, and it didn't really help. Duchene slumped for a while coming in. He's finally looking a little bit better, but now you have the possibility of Carlson not coming. You have the owner talking about relocation. It's a shit show in Ottawa, all right? So everything's going to be getting out of there. So Hoffman is an elite player with an elite shot, and a team like the Boston Bruins should be salivating at the fact that Mike Hoffman's available. All right, he's got a little bit of size. He's got a decent cap hit. He was deadly for Ottawa in the playoffs, and now you bring him into Boston, who has the second best record in the NHL, who has a chance to win the President's Trophy because they got 2 games in hand on Tampa Bay. You don't pass that up. There are a lot of names that Don Sweeney is going to try to bring in, and I really think if Sweeney can hit a home run at the trade deadline, the Bruins go from a team that you think has a shot to a legitimate Stanley Cup contender. Yep. Outside of Boston, I see St. Louis as a team maybe looking at them, and I also see Carolina as a team looking at them. They're that bubble team that maybe if they can get a little bit more of legit scoring, they could bump up from the bubble to the playoffs.
Yeah, I think all those teams have legitimate shots at getting into the playoffs. Obviously, Boston, who can really take it to people. I just think with Ottawa, though, it's going to be tough. It's going to be a tough sell to move him in division, I think, considering he has 1 more year left on his deal. You don't want to be dealing within division and then having to play him 3 times next year. Plus, if Ottawa somehow miraculously turns us around, for example, you don't want to be playing a guy that was on your team. That's the only reason why I'm thinking about it, unless the offer is absolutely ridiculous. I gave my input on Mike Hoffman. I definitely think he's worth the time and effort. My number 6, as we keep moving on here, I have Thomas Vanek, and I mentioned it before, but he's always proving, once again, why he can be a cheap depth rental player. Now, I know he keeps bouncing around from team to team, but he still has that clutch gene, like you said before, and he's got experience. He knows how to deal from going from team to team. Last year, Florida picked him up from Detroit, and he's definitely been dealt at the deadline multiple times, so he's used to it. I think there's a lot of teams that could be interested in his services. I think he's good, solid 3-4 scorer there. Gives you some depth, some veteran leadership. Places he could probably end up going: Anaheim, San Jose, and Minnesota, maybe for like a third. That's what he went for last year. I could definitely see him going for that, but all 3 of those teams definitely need some depth scoring, and Vanek can definitely give it to them.
All right. I agree with that. I think Vanek has a good fit in a lot of places. It just will really depend on what teams are willing to give up and what his asking price could be. I think, he's got a low cap hit, and that could really help Vancouver sell him somewhere. But we'll see what happens there. At 5, I've got another team that's in panic mode.
What about number 6?
Number 6. My bad. Hold on.
Oh, you're all good. Just keeping you on track here.
Yeah, right. I skipped one. Number 6, Patrick Maroon. The Oilers are literally just in quicksand right now. They're falling apart with a team that shouldn't be falling apart. Patrick Maroon is a great asset. Patrick Maroon has shown that for a big rig, he can skate with one of the fastest players in the NHL. Sorry, the fastest player in the NHL, Connor McDavid. The team, again, that should be all over this guy is the Boston Bruins. The Bruins have been always known as the big bad Bruins. The Bruins aren't very big and bad up front this year. Having a chance to acquire a guy like Patrick Maroon to put him on a line with Krejci, he can keep up with McDavid. He can keep up with Krejci. Now you've got that old school kind of Lucic Krejci thing going, but putting Maroon in that situation, he can drive the net, he can muck it up, and now at a playoff roster, you're looking at a team that has Patrick Maroon, David Backes, Tim Schaller, Kevin Miller, Adam McQuaid. That's a scary team to have a 7-game series with. Also, it's a scary team that can score. Other teams that might want Patrick Maroon, St. Louis and Philadelphia. Maybe the Maple Leafs have an outside shot of looking at him, but I think the Maple Leafs would really want him to replace Matt Martin. Maroon comes in with a scoring touch and also that toughness protecting factor. I think the two Atlantic Division teams, Boston and Toronto, are going to be fighting it out to the end to try and get him.
Patrick Maroon is my number 5, so I'll give him my spiel as well right here. But those are all very valid points there. I agree with a lot of those teams there. Boston, St. Louis. I have Colorado possibly being interested in him. My dealio with him is that, yes, he has kept up with the fastest skater, so why can't he do it with McKinnon? McKinnon's absolutely lights out fast as well. So if he can get him right alongside here, and it all depends on where Colorado is come in 2 weeks, how close they are to the playoffs, I think he'd be very nice sitting on the wing of McKinnon. I mean, if he can do it with Connor, he could definitely do it with Mac. And both guys, they play a similar game, that speed game, very talented. I think that was a good move. I like the idea of that Milan Lucic, Patrick Maroon comparison that you brought up. Boston obviously is going to be in a lot of hunt for these guys. And this man is from St. Louis. So he has the experience there. I know his family lives there. So going back to his hometown would be a huge plus for them. St. Louis could also use some toughing up because the past week or two they've been kind of struggling recently. He could definitely go for a second or a third along with some kind of prospect. Or just a prospect, really. I don't know what the Oilers need. They don't need prospects and guys to take their time because they've done that for years. And they don't really need picks. They need players now, and it's win now mode. And it's just a very ugly situation in Edmonton. So I really don't know what they could get in return for something like this. Maybe a guy who's very NHL ready. But when you look at the return that Patrick Maroon could get, it's very confusing. But yeah, he's a very valuable top forward. I mean, the guy's coming off a 20-plus goal year last year. I know he struggled, but that's along with the rest of the team. But his asset and his skill set is very rare. And any of those teams that we've mentioned between the two of us could really use him.
All right, next on my list, it's a guy you're going to hate to hear because I know you're a Rangers fan, all right, is Matt Zuccarello. I think that his time has come. He's a big name. He's a Ranger through and through. But the Rangers are a team that put out a press release saying it's time for old faces to go away. And Zuccarello is a guy that can score, can fly, and he'll get a decent return. A team that I really think is going to be high on Zuccarello, higher than anybody, are the Calgary Flames. Listen to the Calgary Flames right wing depth. Michael Furland, Michael Furleek, Garnet Hathaway, Curtis Lazar. Those are their right wingers. Yes, Furland's having a fantastic season. Hathaway can really get in there, bang the body. Furleek, talented. Lazar, young and good. But you can easily take Zuccarello and put him over Hathaway or Lazar, and that team becomes instantly better and a scary scoring option. I think Lazar is going to find his way out, and Hathaway stays in for playoff series if they go out and get Zuccarello, but I think Calgary is going to be all over him come trade deadline day.
You know what? That's a big proposition that you bring here, and I know, like I said before, I don't know if the Rangers are ready to move on from them just because they have one more year left on their deal. Maybe it's next year that they move them, but yeah, I think definitely Calgary could use another scorer. I mean, that's why I have I forget who I said. It's not ringing a bell right now. I believe it was. Yeah, no, it was Mike Hoffman. I apologize for that. He could definitely be a good addition there. They're around the same cap hit, that scoring depth, and this Calgary team is close. I don't know if they're there yet. They definitely have the decor. Mike Smith's playing out of his mind. They just probably need another depth piece, and when you look at it, Zuccarello could be a very good on paper guy there for them as well. So I think that's a great number 5 there. We're going to keep moving on for number 4. And I'm going to also pick another Ranger here with Michael Grabner. Look
at that.
Yeah, I mean, first time in the whole podcast, probably the last time as well. So he's a very fast-paced winger. A lot of empty net goals here. So his goal count could be a little deceiving. But I mean, when you look at this guy on the kill, he's blocking shots and he's racing you down for it. Like he's going to put the pressure on you easy. And some possible places Calgary could definitely use. the speed and the goal scoring. Pittsburgh needs another winger. Definitely the speed. Put him with Carl Hagelin. Oh boy. And Dallas. I know Dallas, I was looking at their depth. Wasn't really thrilled with their bottom six. They could definitely use another secondary scorer. This guy's young. He's not young, but he's cheap enough. That's the word I'm looking for. Where you can just send a second and third, or a third, and be done with it. There's no real upside. You know what you're getting. And yeah, I think he's definitely worth mentioning in my top 5.
For Grabner, for me, the places that seem most exciting are Anaheim and Pittsburgh. Anaheim plays heavy hockey. Anaheim needs a little bit more speed in that lineup, a little more jump, and a little more goal scoring, and he can definitely bring that in spades to Anaheim. Anaheim is a team built for the playoffs. They just have to get into the damn playoffs, and he'll help get them there. The team that really needs them the most is the Pittsburgh Penguins. The Penguins should be all in this trade deadline. They have a chance to do something that hasn't been done since the New York Islanders. Have a legitimate NHL dynasty 3 straight, okay? You sell what you can do to bring guys in to help Crosby and company. At a cap hit of $1.65 million, Grabner's the perfect asset to bring in for the Penguins. You have to look at who Crosby's playing with right now. He's playing with Brian Rust and Simone. Those are not guys that you want on Crosby's top line come playoff time. You put Grabner in there, have Crosby's vision on a stretch pass, and let them go together. It would be great. He complements Kessel with his speed and shot. That's 2 guys, line 1, line 2, that have shot, speed. That Penguins team becomes a lot more deadly if you bring Michael Grabner into the mix.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a really good fit, like I said. I mean, you didn't even mention Carl Hagelin, who's also a very speedy winger. I know he's having a down year, but my goodness, when he was on the Rangers too, it was very scary to watch. And when I watch him in Pittsburgh, it's also the same thing. So there's a lot of speed on this team. Grabner, probably a very good fit in Pittsburgh. Just depends on what the price is. I don't know if the Rangers are what they're thinking right now. There's definitely many options for them to go here. My number 3, as we move into our top 3, going into another Ranger here, Mr. Rick Nash, who has been playing, I'd say, pretty decent hockey the past couple weeks. And when he was brought into the Rangers, he was brought in as the scorer, the guy you're going to lean on to put the puck in the net. It's not really been him in his Ranger career. I know people he does a consistent goal effort, but a lot of Ranger staff members and, et cetera, wanted him to really go above and beyond. He's developed his game into a different way. He plays very good in all 3 zones. He will go down. He's very good on the kill, but he can also put the puck in the net. Very well-rounded game. It's something you don't get often in a winger, and it's something that, when he's available right now, has got some experience, definitely has playoff experience, can do it. Places I'd like to see him, or possibly could go. Boston, always looking for a power forward. Columbus, who I think they've been missing Saad, and they could definitely use a nice, well-rounded game to throw into the mix, going back to Columbus. Don't really know if that's on his list, because he has that, I believe, modified no-trade clause. I think that's the official term for it. And the St. Louis Blues, who could use another well-rounded guy. Definitely a 3-piece offer that could go for him, a first-rounder, top prospect, and a pick and a possible player. I think the asking price now is a little too high with 4 pieces, but I think they'll definitely, if they will and should move him, definitely get a nice 3-piece return.
Number 3 for Ryan McDonough. I mean, I know he's got 2 years left. I know he's got a year left after this year, so 2 years. And I know he's a captain, and I know it's easier to do this at the deadline, in the off season. You need to look at teams like Tampa Bay, who have a legitimate shot at the cup. Dallas Stars, who have a great offense and need to protect their defense. And the Boston Bruins, again, the Bruins should be in on literally everyone. People talk about Sweeney and the big mistake he made with his drafting and everything. Sweeney killed it with his drafting, okay? He has compiled picks, he has compiled prospects, and he can sell whatever he wants to bring someone in to make the Bruins a cup contender. Right now, Boston Radio is throwing around trades of Carlo or Krug and a first and Spooner to get Ryan McDonough. You're telling me that if you hear Spooner, first, and Carlo, if you're the New York Rangers, you don't bite on that at the deadline, or even Krug to some extent. If you hear that, you're not saying, I'm pulling the trigger right now. If that's the Packers you're getting at the deadline, you might not get something better in the offseason. You take that when you can get it, and that makes the Bruins a legitimate contender, and that's there. McDonough can carry something large at the deadline for teams that are in the right position to move forward, like the Bruins.
You know, yeah, I know we keep bringing up Boston, but they are in a very good position. Like you said, they have a lot of assets that they can move, and Ryan McDonough is definitely one of the better defensemen in this draft. He's just not high enough because I personally don't really see him there. Yeah, no, the offers that I've heard as well through Twitter and through friends, yeah, it's very tempting. Very tempting for this Rangers team to pull the trigger on him. It's going to be interesting where he heads up. I mean, it adds to the drama of trade deadline day, and I'm really hoping for an active one because I remember last year really wasn't that active. I was very disappointed because you sit down, it's like a holiday, at least in the hockey world, and nothing happened. I was very disappointed, but I think this go round has definitely got the potential for it. My number 2, Evander Kane. I don't have him as my number 1. I think Evander Kane, pure power forward here.
Hey, we match again, twice on the same list.
Very nice. Then I was wrong earlier on. Evander Kane, personally, for me, it seems like he's put the garbage and the off-ice antics behind him. And last year he had a rough start to his year. He can't seem to stay healthy, but this year it looks like he's a little different man. Big power forward. Is he going to be expensive to get? Yes. Is he going to be a big, tough guy in front in the playoffs? Yes. Is he going to go harder than that? Yes. He's someone you want on your team. Granted, hopefully he's dropped all the shenanigans, and from what it looks like, it will be, and it has. This guy is definitely someone you should really circle on your list as probably being moved because Buffalo needs everything they can get. Place is Boston, big time. Pittsburgh, as usual, because they need a winger. And I'm also going to throw in, and I know, excuse me on that, we have different views, but I'm throwing the Vegas Golden Knights in there. I think that I know their plan, and I know James Neal, and yada, yada, yada. I know the whole spiel. But this team has got something really special here. And yes, I know it's only their first year, but if they sell to their fan base and they sell to that club, hey, we're buying in and we're going out and getting this guy. Granted, his price they're currently asking 4. I still think it's going to be 3. Vegas has got the room. They have a lot of picks to move that they can build around and they can ship out. So, really wouldn't be surprised if maybe they make an offer. I don't know if it'll fall through, but it would be very interesting to see an Evander Kane on a Las Vegas Golden Knights team.
I don't disagree with Kane going to Vegas, actually. Kane's a different story than James Neal. Kane's locked up, all right, and he's young. You can bring him in to solidify that team, and that's fine. I think that'd be a great asset for them to pick in. That helps now as well as their long-term future goals. I think the a couple other teams that would really be interested, St. Louis. St. Louis has become soft since they lost Ryan Reeves. Everyone was, ecstatic. Oh, we got a first and this and that for Ryan Reeves. That team is soft every night that they play now. Fans who I've seen on Twitter that have claimed to not be fighting fans and goon fans have missed what Ryan Reeves brought to that team. Evander Kane can bring that back, and he can also bring it with skill. Boston Bruins, another team to look at. He's a more skilled Patrick Maroon. If they sell out to get Kane instead of Maroon, that sets them up for the future as well, since he's still locked up. Pittsburgh, Kane playing with Crosby. You got someone to go to the net for Sid and also stick up for Sid. Perfect. Except what saddens me is if they do go after Evander Kane, they lose Ryan Reeves. Ryan Reeves won't see the ice again.
Yeah, that could definitely be an issue there. And you bring up St. Louis, and they tried to replace Ryan Reeves, but that hasn't really worked out with Chris Thorburn. Tough guy, but not a Ryan Reeves kind of tough guy. So Evander Kane, obviously very valued asset right now. He's young. Like I said, he's probably put all the garbage on the off-ice. His issues that he had in Winnipeg, his issues that he had in Buffalo. I can really see this guy being in a Vegas Golden Knights jersey just because of the story they're having this year, and they could really use a nice guy to shore up the top 6. But we're going to move into our number 1 here. And it's someone you mentioned earlier, and there's a big reason why he's up there, and it's Mike Green. Right shot defenseman. You don't get that every day on the market. runs a power play very well. Pure rental here. I know he's got $6 million on his cap. He's UFA. Detroit will eat some of that, but this guy, when you look at him, he can run the power play well. He's a lot better defensively, I think, than Shattenkirk, who was the top rental last year, and he really runs a power play well. You look at his time in Washington and how he ran it with Ovi, it was just really nice to see. He's having a decent year this year. He was obviously an all-star on a team where it really doesn't have many. He's going to be a three-man return, where it's a first-rounder, definitely a top prospect, and maybe another picker player. I can't really see any team making an effort to give out 4 parts, but he's definitely better than Shattenkirk, I think, from last year. Definitely Tampa Bay's going to be in it. Toronto Maple Leafs, big time, I think. If you're going to go out there, go big, go bold. And I also have Washington. I know they probably don't have the assets, but there have been some rumors I've been seeing that Mike Green is definitely going to be interested in coming back there. I know it's probably not his decision, but the connection is there. Like, if any place he'd want to go, definitely Washington. They could use another right-handed shot defenseman, put him back with Ovi. Their power play just got 10 times better.
For me, number 1 is Rick Nash. Rick Nash has the name. Rick Nash has the history. Rick Nash has everything because he's Rick Nash. He's got size. He's got a shot. He's got all the ability that you want to come in as a guy to try and take you to the next step. Toronto's the team that I think would benefit very well from him, especially if they're trying to sell out and win within the next couple years. Boston, I don't think they're very high on him. I think that's really a pipe dream for fans. The Blues are another team I think that would really want to use him. Nashville is a team I've heard floated around, most likely to acquire him. I don't know if that's going to happen. I think Washington is a team you really need to watch out for. Washington is there. Washington's always been there, but Washington comes short. All right, you can key in on Ovi and you can key in on some of the other guys that are their talented players, and all of a sudden things get choked up and the team chokes. I think you add a guy like Rick Nash on a left wing in there, and he just is perfect to help out every other position on that team. He's another big body that you have to cover. He's another name that you have to worry about. All right, you can still circle Rick Nash on your list of guys to scout before a game to be worried about. And a dark horse here, return to Columbus. Keep an eye out on that.
Yeah, no, I definitely think Columbus is missing that 3-zone presence as well. Nashville obviously could be definitely interested in there, and I definitely think Rick Nash can make the jump to 1. I just personally thought the defenseman's a little bit more value, especially being a right shot defenseman who can run a power play. Those are hard to come by. I know there's been 2. Our past 2 ones have been, at least for me, top 10. Our top 10 list here, both number 1 defensemen going on the market. But I guess that's just how the way I feel. I feel that the trade market is dictated a lot by defensemen and quality, because that's how you need to win games. We've both finished our top 10 lists. Brandon, I appreciate you coming on. Any final thoughts here?
What do you think of the Olympics so far?
You know, it's been tough for me to watch personally because a lot of these times either I'm getting back at midnight and they're on, or I'm up for my class really early, and I haven't really been able to watch it. I'm also disappointed that the NHL is there because I feel like that interest is not there just because they're not in it. Plus, it's also in Korea, which is, at least for someone living on the East Coast, it's been very hard to watch. A lot of fun, though, when I have. Tough loss for the women yesterday. And more importantly, the shocking team of Slovenia. Slovenia or Slovakia? It's one of the S countries.
Slovakia upset Russia, Slovenia upset USA.
All right, so then both of them having big teams. This is Russia's tournament to win. Just going to touch that on there. Disappointed with the U.S. there. Nothing I can really say else. I haven't really been watching it just because of the time zone. It's very difficult to stay up late or get up super early for it.
It's funny that I feel the opposite way. I love these Olympics. I'm excited to see these non-NHL guys. I mean, Wolski scored a goal today, scored 2 goals today after breaking his neck 16 months ago. You don't get that storyline if the NHL guys are there. You don't get Bobby Butler having Bobby Butler tell his dad he made the Olympics on the bench of an AHL practice. You don't get those stories. That's what the Olympics is about to me, okay? Yes, you want the best athletes, okay? But there's always feel-good stories at the Olympics, and the NHL players, they don't bring that. They don't bring feel-good stories. They just bring talent. Talent is great, but you have secondary great players now in the Olympics that bring you stories, that bring you in, and I love that. I think that's what makes this Olympics so much more exciting.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a valid point there. It's just sometimes for me personally, it's a little interesting to generate some interest. But yeah, no, Wolski's goal was definitely very nice as well. I saw the highlight reel earlier today, and I was like, wow, I was impressed. And considering a guy who was hurt and severely hurt later on or earlier in his career, it's pretty impressive. So, looks like we're going to wrap it up here. Brandon, thank you for coming on. If you're not following him, follow him at Knuckle Up Hockey. It's a little different feel for on the NHL, but we definitely always love having him on here.
Appreciate it, buddy. I'll see you around.
Yeah, definitely. If you're not following us on Twitter, at the Hockey401, and we will definitely be back next week. Thanks for listening to the Hockey 411. Follow us on Twitter at the Hockey 411, or check out our website, thehockey411.com. See you next time.